Hey, Netarts Friends Church. This is an interactive video. I'm anticipating that you might be watching this on Sunday, but you can watch it anytime. So, because this is an interactive video, that means that the best parts of this video, I hope, are not actually this video. I hope that the best parts and the most beautiful parts of this video will be the conversation and the laughter and the sharing that is about to happen in your home with your people. So you're going to need to go find some people. Go find your people. So if you have family members in the home, whoever's in the home, this video is meant to be watched together. You call it family worship time, call it whatever you want. If you live alone, you can do this video in two different ways. One way would be to just watch it by yourself and kind of pause the video and have conversations with yourself, and that'd be fine. Another way, however, would be call a friend, someone in the Netarts Church family or another friend, and say, hey, go to the Netarts Friends website, netartsfriends.org, show them how to find this video, and just have them click on it and watch it with you at the same time. And then you guys can both pause it and you can have the same conversation that I'm about to lead the rest of us through. Now, for those of you who have children in the home, or if you are just a child at heart, there are some parts of this video that ask you to do more than simply sit and listen, and even sit and listen and talk. There's going to be some activity, so get ready. We're going to need some props. So I need you to go and get some string, or if you have a feather, that would be fabulous, as long as it's somewhat sanitary. Or if you don't have feather or string, just a piece of scrap paper, and you can just cut a narrow strip like this. Something like this, I think, will do the trick. So pause the video right now and go find those props, a feather, a string, or a piece of scrap paper. Pause the video now. Yep, go ahead. Pause the video now. Go find the stuff. Okay. I hope you did that. We're going to get started. We are living in a time when we're not supposed to touch our face. But that creates a problem, because when you are told not to touch your face, all you want to do is touch your face. What if you couldn't touch your face? What if you were paralyzed? What if the only part of your body that you were aware of was your head? What if you were, as far as your experience, what if you were a head? Now, you're going to need to decide at home who wants to pretend that they are paralyzed. And it has to be someone whose doctor would allow them to get down flat on the floor and then to get back up. So, pause the video. Who is going to pretend that they are paralyzed? Go ahead. Pause the video now. Decide who it's going to be. All right. So, your paralyzed person needs to lay down on the floor. And they need to lay down flat and imagine that they cannot feel their arms, their legs, their trunk. As far as they are concerned, they are only a head. And this is where it starts to get fun. Now, the paralyzed person is going to need a partner or two. The rest of you, the partners, get to be the bugs. So take your string, take your paper that you cut out, your feather, whatever it is that you chose, and you are going to crawl it along their face like a bug. The paralyzed person gets to experience, what do you do if you can't swat the flies and the other bugs off of your face? So pause the video for a moment and take turns experiencing what it's like to have bugs crawling on you if you are unable to do anything about it. And maybe you want to take turns. Maybe a few people want to do that. So pause the video and go ahead and do that. All right. I really hope you did that one. How was that? Were you able to keep yourself from moving your hands to get that bug off your face? Now, on the one hand, this silly little experiment at home might be laughable, but if this is your condition, it really isn't funny at all. It's not funny for very long. How quickly would the flies and the bugs learn that you are helpless and just come back to chew on you? Like, I'm right back at him. Now I have another question for the paralyzed person. If you are a paralyzed person, remember, you can't do anything for yourself. And so I want you, the paralyzed person, to start naming the things that you are going to need your caregiver to do for you. And as the paralyzed person in your group names that activity, I want the rest of you, you are the caretakers, I want you to say how you would feel about doing that task. So go ahead, pause the video and have that conversation. What do you need your caregivers to do for you? And caregivers, how do you feel about doing that task? Go ahead, pause the video now, have that conversation. All right, we're back. Are you connecting yet with this reality? Did you guys talk about bathroom issues? Because that is the biggie here. It's, as a paralyzed person, you're going to need someone who's willing to regularly change your diaper, whatever that's going to be. And when you have a cold or a runny nose, a snotty nose, you're going to need someone else to wipe your nose and blow your nose for you. Your personal hygiene is completely dependent on your caregiver. So how stinky can you handle being? And how often do you want a haircut or a shave? And how many days can you go without a shower or fresh clothes? And how's that affect your bug situation? All of that is dependent upon your caregiver. And then there's the eating and the drinking. You are completely dependent upon your caregiver for every single bite of food that goes into your mouth, every single sip of water. Without them, you will starve to death. Now, our story today is about Jesus and a paralyzed guy. And yes, the story shows up in Matthew 9 and Mark 2 and Luke 5, but don't go off and read it just yet. If you are paralyzed, you have a lot of time to think. You have too much time to think. It's one of the only things that you can do. And in Jesus' day, people associated illnesses, injuries, tragedies, disease, they associated those things with sin that had been committed. So the thinking went something like this. It was, if a tragedy happened to you, you fell off the roof and broke your neck, or whatever, however you got paralyzed, the thinking went, well, you probably deserved it. That was kind of the baseline idea. So here is the question. If you were a paralyzed person in Jesus' day, how many times a day would you replay all of those wrongs that you had done before you broke your neck? And how might those wrongs gnaw on your soul? If the only thing you can do is think 24/7 about what you did to deserve this, how do you feel about yourself and how do you feel about God? So go ahead, pause the video, and have that conversation. If this is all you can think about, what did I do to deserve this? How do you feel about yourself? How do you feel about God? Go ahead, pause the video, have that conversation. All right. So now that we are connected with the emotions of our paralyzed guy as well as his physical experience, our story takes place in the village of Capernaum. Now, Jesus had moved to Capernaum recently. And when you move to a new place, that means you probably have a house there, a place to live of some sort. Now, Jesus had been traveling around a good bit, but on this particular day, Jesus was in town. And everyone wanted to see him and hear him. And so the house that he's in is jam-packed with people, and the crowds are spilling outside. Everyone wants to see and hear what Jesus is saying, see what he's going to do. And so Jesus is in the house, and he's talking with the people. And as he's talking, the roof dust starts to fall in from the roof, and the dirt starts to sprinkle, and branches and leaves and reeds are being torn back, and there are 4 guys that are literally up there on the roof, and they're tearing a hole in the roof. And so the dust is falling in, and the sunlight is shining through. And if you are hosting that gathering, if this is your home, someone starts tearing the roof off of your place. Like, let's think about it in just today. Right now, as you're watching this video, 4 guys are up on your roof, and they start tearing a hole in the place. What are you going to do? So pause the video and talk about it. If this is your house and a hole is being torn in the roof, what do you do? All right. Why don't any of the Gospels tell us about this angry homeowner that's running around and kicking everyone out and, hey, get out of my house, stop tearing my house apart? Why don't we have that character in the story? Well, some biblical scholars think that this house belongs to Jesus. It's in Capernaum, so it's possible that Jesus is the one getting the hole torn in the roof of his house. It's possible. As the people's eyes adjust inside of this room, there's dust in the air now, and now there's sunlight shining in. They see that there is a paralyzed man on a mat, and he's being lowered into the room by these 4 men. Some biblical scholars think that the 4 men are 4 of Jesus' disciples, Simon, Andrew, James, and John. It's possible. Jesus looks up at these guys, and he doesn't think, those dirty vandals. Or he doesn't even see desperation, like, wow, these guys are impatient. They can't even wait until I'm done in the house here with the people. He doesn't see desperation or impatience. He looks at these guys, and he sees faith. That's what he sees. And now everyone is leaning in to see what Jesus is going to say and do, because they've all heard the stories. Jesus has been going around healing people, lepers, all kinds of folks, all kinds of diseases. And so they're thinking, Jesus is about to heal this guy. But instead, Jesus says to this man, laying paralyzed on the mat, son, your sins are forgiven. The wrongs that you have done are irrelevant to how God feels about you. Now, that comment throws red flags for all the religious leaders in the room, because they're thinking, wait, what? You can't just tell someone that they're forgiven. Who's this guy think he is, speaking for God? It's kind of like if I wanted to declare presidential executive order. And I go around saying, I've declared a presidential executive order. And people would just laugh at me. You can't do that. Now, they're thinking these thoughts. Who's this guy think he is? And Jesus knows these thoughts that are going through their minds. And he says to them, he says, why are you thinking these things? He says, which one's easier? Is it easier for me to say, son, your sins are forgiven? Or is it easier for me to say, get up, take your mat, walk, go home? He says, I want you to know that the Son of Man, which is the model human, the human, I want you to know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. So the religious leaders are glaring. And Jesus turns to this paralyzed guy who hasn't even been able to wipe his nose for years. And he says, son, get up, take your mat, walk, go home. And now everyone is holding their breath. The man is laying there. And they lean in. His stomach muscles, they haven't tightened in years. They start to come together and to tighten. And people see his feet are starting to kind of move a little bit. And his knees start to bend. He starts to be able to gather his feet under him. They see his hands, his wrists, they start to turn. And he pushes his hands into the dirt of the floor. He bends his knees a little more, brings them up, and he gathers his feet underneath him. And the religious leaders now, they are swallowing hard, but every other eye in the room is, tears are starting to form in the corners of their eyes. And as he gathers his feet, the man starts to push with his hands, and a smile starts to spread across his face, and he stands upright. And he looks down at that mat, that sweat-stained, nasty mat he's been laying on for years. And not only in this moment has his life been given back, but the narrative that said, you deserve this, that narrative has been unraveled. It doesn't have a hold on him anymore. He is forgiven, and he can see that it's true. The way that God feels about him is irrelevant to whatever it is that he did back there. And the smile that spreads across his face turns into a laugh. And he bends over and he rolls up that mat, and laughter breaks out over the entire room. People are celebrating. They begin to dance with joy, and they start to slap him on the back. His arms, he's not been able to hug anyone for years. And how can anyone not let him get a hug or some kind of a squeeze or something? And the whole room is celebrating and dancing and praising God. Now, I have one final activity for you. One final question. It is, first of all, show us your dance. If you were there that day, what kind of dance would you be doing, celebrating this moment? And secondly, and more importantly, if you witnessed this, how would this impact the way that you saw God and the way that you saw yourself? So, in just a moment, pause the video, and I'm going to put that question up for you. And once you have that conversation, pray for one another. Pray for our world. And remind one another of these words of Jesus son, daughter, your sins are forgiven. Whatever you've done, it is irrelevant to the way God feels about you. So pause the video, have that final conversation. Show us your dance, and how might this event change the way you think about God and yourself? All right, Netards Friends Church, love you. I'm praying for you. I hope that this was a good time together with the people in your home or on the phone. Don't forget, if you have any needs during this time, feel free to reach out. Reach out to one another, reach out to me. We're in this together. God bless you.